All right, well, welcome everyone to our webinar today. Thank you so much for joining us for the Masters in Bioethics and Medical Humanities Professional Development webinar. We're so delighted to have you join us. I'll get us started and turn it over to Sam Hamilton.
Good afternoon, everyone. I guess it's early evening, but my name
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it is. My name's Sam. I work in the Enrollment Management Office, and one of the programs that I help to support is the Bioethics and Medical Humanities Master's Program. And so I'm delighted to talk to you today about just the initial kind of setup of the program and then how to chat in questions. And then I'll pass it back to our awesome panelists for this afternoon or this evening's event. But before we get into the Q&A, let's go back to the agenda, just so that way everyone knows where we're going. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Case Western Reserve School of Medicine, what that looks like, how do we interact with them, the actual MA in Bioethics and Medical Humanities program, and all of the different portions of curriculum to opportunities to where people end up going, and then of course into the professional development side of things. After that, we'll talk about the application process and deadlines, whether you're considering applying for this fall or maybe next fall. And then at the end, we'll go into a Q&A. And with the Q&A, what you're going to want to do is either at the bottom of your screen, if you're on a desktop, you're going to see a little chat bubbles that say Q&A on it. You'll click that and then you can answer, or you could type all your questions and we will go through at the end and answer them. If there's something that's pertinent, of course, we'll go throughout the program itself. And if you're on a mobile device, you'll actually go to the top left of your screen. You'll see 3 lines. You'll click that. There'll be a drop down and it'll say question, answer, the full words. You'll click on that and then do the same thing about typing out your answer or your question, and we'll give you the answer to that at some point during our presentation. And then, of course, without further ado, I will pass it back over to our esteemed panelists and let them introduce themselves.
Thank you. It is such a delight to be here to talk about the MA in Bioethics and Medical Humanities at Case Western Reserve, and to emphasize the amazing professional development opportunities that the program offers. I'm Dr. Eileen Anderson. I'm the Director of Education for our programs in Bioethics and Medical Humanities, and I direct the MA program. And I am delighted to have Dr. Leah Jeanette as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Leah Jeanette. I'm Assistant Director of Education and a Senior Research Associate in the program in the Department of Bioethics. I'm also an alum of the Master's program, so it's also kind of fun to have started out in the program and now being on the other side of it as well.
So cool. So it is such a privilege to work every day at Case Western Reserve School of Medicine. In our state, it is ranked #1 of all medical schools in the United States. It is ranked this year at number 24. And then in aspects of it, such as value added from education, we are actually in the top 3 in the nation. It's just an amazing place to be because Cleveland is such a medical city, and we have, as you'll hear later in the webinar, tight relationships with 4 major amazing hospitals. So our exposure and interaction with the medical system is amazing. Within the School of Medicine, we have a diverse set of colleagues that we work with in other departments as well. And then the school is situated among 8 different schools at the university, and we have collaborations with all of those as well. So the richness of what the school offers is enhanced by all of our collaborations in the surrounding area. So we get the question from people trying to discern what's my best next step. Should I consider a master's in bioethics and medical humanities? What will it add and why should I study it? And if you think about it, and actually COVID-19 has been an unfortunate but vivid example where so many of the big questions were about things like research, resource allotment, like who who should get a ventilator first or second or third, and who should get, how should we deal with this vaccine issue? What are people doing in their own behavioral health? Should I wear a mask? Should I not wear a mask? What does that mean? What kind of interventions should we do? When should we launch something to policy? So it's all these kind of like non-biological questions that bioethics and medical humanities, really embraces. So with our constant advancement in medical technology, medical science, even robotics, the questions that doctors are having to engage is, what should you do? When should you do it? How do you ensure justice and respect in both research and in clinical practice, clinical intervention, even public health? What kinds of values do we agree as a society and a community should inform our policy and practice, and how do we put those into play? So bioethics and medical humanities attacks all these, both value-laden, but also the questions about structure and policy, questions about structural inequality, questions about culture and different belief systems, questions about how do you best communicate. Sometimes people are really moved to enhance their health through arts, through a play that moves them, or a TikTok, or lots of different media. So this is the stuff of bioethics and medical humanities, and it is so broad that we could go on and on. So I think we'll continue using examples as we go through. And how does this help your career path? We tend to bring in a student class of people who are taking multiple pathways. We have a lot of pre-clinicians, pre-med or pre-nursing, pre-dental coming into our program, or people who say, I want a career in healthcare, but I don't exactly know where I want to go next. But we also get people who are coming from arts and humanities, people who really want to be an ethicist, a policy ethicist, or a clinical ethicist, or maybe work in research ethics, or people who are going on to something like health law, or health, some kind of health social science, because this amazing interprofessional and multidisciplinary world gives people incredible exposure to what is happening in clinical practice. And we'll talk a little bit later about clinical rotations, where you are embedded in clinical settings, seeing the many different functionalities and the dilemmas that come up in real time in, many times life and death situations, and how bioethics and medical humanities can help us navigate some of the hardest questions that happen in a hospital setting. And so the bioethics and medical humanities tends to be an incredible enhancement because of the training you get to look at a situation, analyze, understand, and evaluate where are the dilemmas coming from, what are the value conflicts here, and pave a way forward. So our students will go on to all kinds of clinical programs. I actually got a beautiful text from one of our students who just graduated telling me she got into medical school today. It was so exciting. And as I mentioned, legal professions. We have other students actually this year also who just went right into doing, working on research teams or working in ethical regulatory work. We have students go on to other degrees in arts and humanities, or work at nonprofits and put them to use right away. We have lots of alum who have become or are in training for bioethicists, working in various types of public health organizations, governmental and non-governmental, academics. And as I alluded to before, this program, because of its wide exposure, because of the diversity of the faculty that you'll be interfacing with, it tends to be a great place to kind of figure out your next step if you're not exactly sure either. We have people who come in and are absolutely sure, I want to be an OBGYN, or I want to, I know my next step. But we also have people who come in and say, I'm here to explore. And often those conversations and experiences are so rich as enhancement for our new alum going forward. So our program is one of the oldest in the country. It has been booming for 27 years. And it's an intensive year, but if you are doing it full time, you can complete this program in 2 semesters. So over those 2 semesters, all students in the program take our core foundations courses in bioethics and medical humanities, one in the fall and one in the spring. In the fall, you are exposed to all the major kind of ways of thinking about bioethics and medical humanities, and you are exposed to thinking and engaging with questions throughout the human life cycle that tend to come up. Then in the spring, there are topics like research ethics, public health ethics, new technologies, and ethics, and really looking at global health ethics, really looking at kind of contemporary issues that are critically important today in bioethics and medical humanities. All of our students engage in 80 hours each semester in clinical ethics rotations. So this is where you're at one of our 4 partner hospital systems, 2 private, 2 public. You'll hear more about it. All superb, and you get your hands in there. You see things happening real time, and you participate in different kinds of ethics consultations that go on in the hospital every single day. And you have an opportunity to step back and reflect with your classmates and a preceptor. And each student will complete a capstone over the course of the year, where you work closely with a faculty advisor and you really become an expert on a topic that you have passion about, or you've discovered passion about during your fall semester. That's a spring semester experience. So you have a good amount of electives to work with your advisor to make sure that your curriculum is what you need for your next steps going forward. So you can take electives from within the Department of Bioethics, from the other departments at the School of Medicine, or from other schools all around the university. So the College of Arts and Sciences, the law school, sometimes we'll have students go over to engineering. It just depends on your pathway. And that's why we have a pretty healthy advising system to help you choose the best classes for you. You could also use your electives to concentrate and get a deep dive into one of 2 optional concentrations. The first one is called Medicine, Society, and Culture. And that is really a deep dive into the medical humanities, social medicine aspects of things. Or you could do a concentration in research ethics, where you will actually, not only will you do a kind of deeper seminar into research ethics, but you will also get your hands wet doing a practicum in an IRB, in a university or a hospital, or really seeing hands-on, how does this work? We also offer a host of dual degree programs with other programs at Case Western Reserve, which you can check out on our website. And those you get accepted into each program, but those tend to be a great value because there ends up some reduced tuition, and some of the classes will count for both degrees. So that's another exciting option that some of our students pursue. So a really unusual, and I think awesome part of what we do in our program is really support your professional development. It is a top-notch educational experience. And as we've mentioned, in addition to classroom education, some of that is taking place out in the field, in clinical departments. Sometimes people are working more in communities. There's, many options for that. But there are other ways that this program really enhances students' professional development. One that we hear about a lot is the clinical ethics rotations. When students are interviewing for medical schools or trying to get into a PhD or something like that, they come back and say, talking about the rotations made the difference. I was able to show that I could really take all this book knowledge and really apply it to a real life situation, for example. So it's an incredible enhancer experience. The other thing that happens is students develop broad networks and network through those rotations as well into both research and other kinds of positions relevant for clinical practice. We also have, for electives, we have a broad range of study abroad classes that you can choose, and we're pretty excited. We had to close those down due to restrictions with COVID-19, but they're reopening now. And so that experience where you are taking a class and you're working with faculty, both from our faculty, but also in the Netherlands or in Costa Rica or in France, and you are getting this incredible exposure to multiple cultural contexts around different topical areas that you can look at our website. We'll mention a little bit later. And then we offer some unusual opportunities to strengthen your skill set at the master's level. So many of our MA students will participate on research projects, and we offer a bunch of research training, which we'll show you in a moment, across the year. So students will come in and say, I really want to learn. I want to get my hands wet in research. I want to, learn how to do a really good lit review. I want to learn how to do data analysis. I actually, literally today, I was working on something where I'm publishing with some of my students. So there's some incredible research skill opportunities embedded within this program. More, a subset of students will get a competitive student assistantship, and that provides some offsetting of tuition, and it allows students to participate as a research assistant or working as a teaching assistant, helping to teach undergrad classes, which is also an incredible professional development opportunity that students come back and tell us about and tell us how well it served them in their next step. Or doing program work and program development, depending on your trajectory and the departmental needs. So it's a really amazing year. Sometimes people will come to us for a gap year, or sometimes it's just part of the trajectory. But it is, in all these diverse ways, it's an amazing opportunity to prepare and enhance your skills and experience for the next phase in your career. So Dr. Jeanette, you oversee the clinical ethics rotations. Will you tell us a little bit about them?
Absolutely. So as was said before, we have 4 different hospitals that we partner with here in Cleveland, where students are able to rotate at. So over the course of the program, you spend about 160 hours inside these teaching hospitals. So Cleveland Clinic, Metro Health, the VA, and university hospitals. When you're assigned to a specific hospital, there's a myriad of rotation opportunities for students. We kind of break them down into 3 categories, but of course, when you're at, let's say, Metro, there's opportunities for all 3 of these things while you're at Metro. So there's opportunities to go on different types of rounds, whether it's general floors, ICUs, step downs, and your on these rounds with different team members, and there's a whole variety of people that are involved in those rounds. It's an incredible opportunity. The second kind of category is committees, and these committees can range from very small teams to quite large, and they can be very specific things like ethics committee meetings, and they can be more general, looking at hospital policy or patient decisions to research. And then lastly, it's one-on-one with healthcare professionals. So getting to shadow a physician in the emergency room, or going with a genetic counselor as they disclose patient results, or going with a chaplain as they visit patients throughout the hospital. So these opportunities are amazing for our students at the specific hospital they're assigned to. And so we consistently hear from students that they are amazed at what they get to experience, the depth of knowledge that they get to experience and take in. And then on a weekly basis, they meet with fellow students, a site preceptor, to help digest, to help unravel and really just kind of process everything they're experiencing, because it can be overwhelming, it can be exhilarating, it can be eye-opening, because you're experiencing life and death in a hospital system. And students absolutely love this part of the program. And so you get to leave the program with 160 hours of clinical time, which is amazing. And other programs don't offer this kind of resume enhancer and experience. So something else that we offer, as was mentioned, is our short-term study abroad. As you can see, there's 1 to 2 weeks for these opportunities. What's great about them is they're 3 credit hour electives, and while you register for them during the regular semester, the travel for these are during your breaks. And so they're a great way to take a 3 credit hour course, but also offset the workload in a really creative way, but still get to travel and see different places and experience different cultures and study specific topics in bioethics and medical humanities in a really unique cross-cultural way. So we have courses that go to Costa Rica, Spain, France, the Netherlands, and even a domestic course to the U.S. national parks. There's a park system here in Ohio, but we also have done a course to Yellowstone and looking at other parks across the U.S.
Which actually also says something about the kind of breadth of what bioethics and medical humanities is, because that one is on environmental ethics and human health.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's and because our faculty are so diverse, we have faculty that specialize in all these different areas. It's really incredible. So I had mentioned before that research opportunities just abound. It's one of the reasons I love this department. All of the faculty and many of the staff are very research active at the highest levels, working locally, nationally, and internationally. And I will say, an aside on that, something that I love about this program is that we all have grants, are doing research, but everyone cares about students. They want to involve students. They want to get student feedback. So when we hire faculty and staff, it's important to us that they are not only great, phenomenal in their area, world class, but that they also really love to teach and mentor students. That's an important part for everyone in our department. But that said, there are a lot of research dollars and a lot of projects booming in the department pretty much at all times. We also have a bi-monthly research core forum where you are learning different research skills and have an opportunity, to learn from the best, so that if you dedicate yourself to attending these throughout the year, you will come out with a really significant set of research skills under your belt. We have works in progress seminars on a regular basis where you can engage in ongoing research, hear what people are finding, but also how they're doing their work, what questions are coming up, what do they have to grapple with, maybe what decisions do they make going forward. And so that's like a really exciting kind of think tank opportunity. One of our hospitals, Metro Health, has an ongoing seminar that many of our students will participate in called Bioethics at Noon. You can guess when that is, bring your lunch. That is incredibly engaging and will keep you up to date on kind of cutting edge topics in bioethics today. Another one of our hospitals, university hospitals, invites students to the ethics grand rounds, which is, another opportunity to kind of hear from people doing this work at cutting edge, places and projects, what is going on. And you can either, some of our students will go to all of those and some will pick and choose depending on their particular interests. And as I mentioned, the faculty, all of us, love to invite students on projects, and working with our staff and faculty is one of the things we hear from our alum was incredibly meaningful for them going forward. And many of them are building their resumes because they're part of teams, they're part of, publications. And if that's a goal, you can articulate that right up front and be talking to different faculty to see if there's an opportunity, this year for you in an area you're interested in. So I mentioned the student assistantships where you can get some amazing experience in teaching, research, or different kind of administrative roles. These are competitive. They are both merit and need-based and provide a partial tuition waiver to help offset the cost of the program for you. And the resume enhancing aspects of this are fantastic because they tend to be in whatever the content area is. But let's say like those who assist with teaching, for example, they're not only gaining additional knowledge in bioethics and medical humanities, but regardless of your next step, everyone wants to hire somebody who's a good communicator. And you are definitely learning how to do that through that kind of experience. You're learning how to engage and mentor younger students. You're learning how to maybe create a rubric or grade, depending on the particular class that you are assisting with. So, this goes through all three of those, where you're getting content knowledge and you're getting the skills-based training that students say really enhances their resume or CV as they move forward. I mentioned the possibility of publications as well. And the networking that can happen in this program is really exciting, not only in terms of faculty and staff, both at the university and in the hospitals, but you would be joining, we have over 1,000 alumni who are working all over the place, in the United States and abroad in all kinds of different fields, who feel like they are part of an alumni family and love talking to our students and new grads who are maybe thinking about a career similar to theirs. So the type of networking offered in this program is just really exceptional. And as someone who's worked in multiple R1 universities, what you get in a one-year program here is just unparalleled, in my observations and experience. And it's part of the reason that I'm here, because I love it. So we do offer personalized advising for each student. And so each student is assigned an advisor that we think will be a good fit for them. But students will maybe light up in a particular lecture in foundations, or maybe a class, or maybe one of their clinical rotations. And there is no limit. Many students will be advised, by multiple advisors, kind of putting together the different pieces of the puzzle for them going forward. And then, as we've mentioned, you have exposure to all these different kind of modalities, different careers, different disciplines. So you can really sit down with people who are doing, maybe some of the things you're considering right now, or maybe something you never even thought of before you saw it in action in a hospital. And you can learn about, what are you doing? How did you get there? What advice do you have for me as you move forward in your career? And in addition to the kind of on the ground things, we have a fantastic career and professional development office in the School of Medicine, who is there for you and is well aware of our master's program. And there are also university graduate studies opportunities that you can engage with. Dr. Jeanette, will you talk a little bit about the application process and requirements, because we are coming up upon our final deadline for our application, August 1st.
Absolutely. So to submit a completed application package, there's an application, of course, to fill out online. We look for transcripts from all undergrad and grad programs that you have completed or started. We look for a statement of purpose. When you submit a statement of purpose, what we're really looking for is 1 to 2 pages talking about your interest in bioethics and medical humanities and how does it fit into your career path. Really, that's what we're looking for in that statement of purpose. It's also an opportunity if you have any concerns on your application that you want to explain further, of course, you can also include that there. We also ask for a CV or a resume, and then 2 letters of recommendation. One of those we ask to be from a faculty or professor or instructor of some kind that you've previously had. Once we have a completed application, we have an individual review it, and we have someone else interview you from our admissions committee. And once we have a completed application, we can typically render a decision within 2 to 3 weeks. I would say at this point, we can shorten that probably 1 to 2 weeks, given that we are very close to our deadline. So completed applications, of course, that means the letters of recommendation have come in as well. But applications can be submitted all the way up until this August 1st deadline. Of course, we are an in-person program, so you also want to think about what that means for your housing and kind of the moving of if you're not located here in Cleveland or Northeast Ohio. So keep that in mind, but we can move on applications very quickly. So we are constantly staying current with those and moving as quickly as we can through them so that we can get you processed and make sure that, if you are accepted into the program, you can join us this August for classes. And classes ultimately start August 29th. We have orientation the 25th and 26th. So just the Thursday and Friday before classes start. So there's time in August for you to move and get ready to start classes.
Yep, and I want to offer one other thing. If you're wondering, would this program be a good fit for me? Are my credentials appropriate for this program or anything like that? You are also welcome to contact us, shoot an email, and we can have a conversation with you, like a pre-screen, quickly, immediately, now that we're approaching, the end of the application cycle. But we're happy to kind of hear about you and your background and help you kind of figure out, would this be a good fit?
Yeah, it's a great point, Dr. Anderson. I do a lot of the pre-screening kind of phone calls and Zooms. And I think it really helps students kind of figure out fit for the program. And not just if they're the right fit for our program, but if our program's the right fit for them and their circumstances as well. So looking for mutual fit.
Exactly. Yep. And we would love, there is a lot more we could say about the program, but we really want to welcome, if you have any questions, to please go ahead and use that Q&A feature and ask us your questions. And Sam, I'm going to ask you to kind of keep an eye on Q&A.
You've got it. So far, there's nothing in there, but I'm going to double check. I think we had some pre-submitted questions, so I'll look at those real quick. And
thank you.
Yeah.
You know, one of the questions we often get is what sets our program apart from other Masters in Bioethics or Masters in Medical Humanities programs. And Dr. Anderson, how would you answer that question?
Oh, I think that is a great question. And I would answer that question in a few different ways. You know, right off the bat, the clinical rotations are so unique. And so we have such a long history doing them, even though they change up every year, depending on, you know, changes in medical practice. But that opportunity is really something special about this program. I think something else really unique nationally is the diversity and breadth of our faculty and staff. So a lot of programs, and you know, one of the things I benchmarked really carefully when we were expanding the kind of medical humanities, social medicine, arts and medicine part of our program was really do a national comparison to other major programs in the US, a couple of which I was trained at and worked with. And one thing that is incredibly unique about us, because of how Case Western Reserve developed, and because Cleveland is such a medical dominant city, we had really broad bench strength across the humanities and the arts and the social sciences, and things like our health law center was the first in the country and remains one of the best. Our biomedical engineering is phenomenal, top ranked, you know, also our, you know, health economics, like in every aspect, we have such a breadth. And we have primary faculty who are based within the Department of Bioethics, who you would see all the time, be taking classes from, maybe have as an advisor. But we also have faculty partners across the university and throughout the hospitals. And that kind of breadth is really, really a unique feature. So the exposure you get like through the foundations course, you know, is atypical. You're still getting the depth, but you're getting the breadth as well. The short-term study abroad options are something that people comment on a lot, that they are not finding opportunities for in bioethics and medical humanities at other universities. And it tends to be something that stays with people for a lifetime. And, you know, I think there's two other aspects I would mention, and they're about the spirit of community. So as I said, to have, you know, world-class faculty and staff who are deeply invested in education and students while doing, you know, very sophisticated, high-powered research, that is not something you find in a lot of programs of this caliber. And even though, you know, there are many strong programs across the country. But it is this sense that people refer to as kind of family or the cohort building. That is something that our students and our alumni comment on a lot, that they really learn from each other. They really feel part of a community that is their class or maybe their concentration and beyond into our kind of alumni world. So the sense of community and belonging, I think, for an R1 top-notch med school program is pretty cool, that people are feeling a sense of support and collaboration. Are there other pre-submit questions, Sam, or other things you're thinking of, Dr. Jeanette?
Yeah, so there were a couple pre-submitted questions. Actually, all of them were about the same topic around funding and international student funding and how to go about those processes. I know that's definitely, in some cases, more of a one-on-one basis, but I'd love for us to discuss that a little bit more about what those opportunities could look like and just make sure that we cover that a little bit greater detail.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm happy to kind of start that if we want. So I will say our student assistantships are open to any student, regardless if they're international or a domestic student. They're open to any student. As we said before, they are on average about $5,000 tuition waiver, but they are highly competitive. They're closed for this year. So for students that are interested in applying for those, it would be for next year. In terms of other sources of funding, we have a lot of resources listed on our website. So if students wanted to get in contact with us through our email, I'm happy to send them a variety of links and get them into contact with International Student Services here at CASE, because they also can point you in a couple of different directions. I know that's kind of a general answer, but there's more directions to point you in depending on where you're from, and knowing more context can be very helpful to answer more specific questions. But we do have a number of international students that join the program every year, and we love having them in the program.
Exactly. And again, you know, that's where exactly what you both mentioned, the case by case, you know, kind of sorting out of what's your situation, what are possibilities, what have we seen before with students who might be coming from a similar background, and how can we help? Those conversations, you know, would be great to have.
Awesome. Thank you. Those were all of the pre-submitted questions. Again, they were all happened to be around the same topic, so it makes it very easy. But I don't know if there's any other questions that Dr. Jeanette wanted to pose or anything like that, but I figured I would pass the baton back over if there were anything.
I would just say, Dr. Anderson, do you have kind of any just final thought you wanted to share before we wrap up? I think we're pretty much covered with our topic for today.
Yeah, I would just say, you know, emphasize again, you know, we are here to, you know, have a conversation with you. You know, let us know what you're looking for, or you're not quite sure, or you're wondering, would I have this opportunity? You know, my interests are this, who might I work with if I come? Anything like that. You know, we're kind of an environment. We tell students at orientation, this is a no dumb questions kind of place. And you know, none of us in a diverse interdisciplinary field or at a big complex research university, none of us know everything. So we all, you know, really have an open environment to, you know, continue to ask our genuine questions and get the knowledge we need, you know, to progress in any of our careers. So we welcome you on that front. And we're happy to talk to people about nuts and bolts also, whether it be the finances or, people will ask, well, where do people live? All those kinds of questions. There's no kind of question that, you can't talk to us about. Yeah, and I would just say, it's easy for me to say because this is what I get to do every day. But the one of the reasons I absolutely love my job every day, and I absolutely love our MA program, is because it's a program where every single student is capable and is engaged and is intelligent, and every single student is passionate about making the world a better place. And so that combo of having kind of the head and the heart engaged, I think, that's a quality we have in faculty and staff also, but it just makes for such an inspiring and kind of uplifting experience working with each MA class. That's a characteristic I have seen every single year since I have been part of the department.
I agree. I agree with everything you just said. So I just want to thank everyone who is attending or who is watching the recording. Thank you so much for your time. If you have questions, feel free to email us, bioethics@case.edu. We'll either respond to your question or put you in touch with someone who is in a better position to answer that question. So we hope that you found this webinar helpful, and we look forward to either reviewing your application or having you join the program or speaking with you further in whatever capacity we can be in touch with you. So thank you so much for your time.
Agree. Thank you so much. And thank you, Sam, and thank you, Dr. Jeanette.
Yeah, of course. Everyone have a great rest of your evening.